Good morning, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, the host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So lots of great stuff to talk about today. As always, want to just always start out with the stats in regards to what's going on there and everything, and then talking about a few more things that are going on in the market. And I get calls from sellers all the time that are asking questions, as well as buyers, in order to figure out, what we can do and all of that. So that's what we're here to answer and help you with today. But basically, when we're looking at the market, last week there were 421 homes sold, and it was 426 the week before, so pretty consistent, obviously. The median price increased a little bit to $430,000. So again, staying pretty consistent when you're looking at that. The inventory increased by 80 up to 7239. So, probably for the last year, it's been like 80 houses a week or 100 houses a week or whatever that have been increasing when we're looking at the inventory. So the biggest difference between last year's inventory and this year's inventory is that it has doubled. And that's just with adding 100 a week, 50 a week, whatever. Every week it's going up a little bit. And so as a result of that, the inventory has increased. Now, the price has not been affected at all. And basically with the sellers and everything that I'm working with, and what I have seen is that if you price your property right, it is going to sell in this market, and pretty quick. For example, we put a house on the market last week. We sold it in one day. And it was because it was priced right. Now, there are other properties that the sellers are not willing to price it correctly. And then as a result of that, it sits and sits and sits on the market. And you think, oh, well, they're just going to come in and make an offer on it. Well, time is short. They've got a lot going on. And so they're looking at their best options. And when they see something that really strikes their fancy and basically it's priced correctly, they're not even going to look at that next house. So your house never even got looked at because it wasn't priced properly. So pricing is so critical in today's market, and I just always want to make sure that everybody is well aware of that. Now, markets change, and in other times, a couple of years ago, before the interest rates went up, you could pretty much put your house at whatever you wanted to on the market, and you'd say, hey, I want to charge $10,000 more than the neighbor did, and I'd be like, okay, and we'd get it and more, but not today. So that's why you need somebody who's in the know working with you to actually, and evaluate, look at it, see what the best thing is for you and your family to make everything work. So basically, again, like I said, the median price is $430, and the inventory went up by 80. So when you're breaking down those 421 houses, and next week it'll be higher because it'll be the end of the month that will be included in that. We're always a week behind. But under 250, there were 29 homes that sold, 26 between 250 and 300, 126 between 300 and 400, 82 between 400 and 500, 134 between 500 and a million, and 24 over a million. When you're looking at the months of inventory, we're at overall with what sold last week at 3.97, and under 250 is at 2.79. It's 3.1 between 250 and 300, 2.56 between 300 and 400. Between 400 and 500, there's 4.19, and that's considered a normal market. And then 500 to a million, 4.83, and 8.19 over a million. So you would think, logically, that if there's a lesser inventory at the under 250 and a much higher, over a million, that the list to ask price ratio is going to be, a lot more that's going to be reflected in it. Overall, 97.57 with the amount that people are asking for their homes and what they're getting on them. Basically, under 250, it's 92.10, and that's our lowest number this week. And so when you're looking at that and you're going, gosh, I wonder why it is that. And the reason is because at 92.10, usually those houses need work. maybe they've been sitting on the market a while or whatever. And so basically when it comes down to it, that's a really big factor when it comes to that. Then when we're going to the 250 to 300 and on up, it's 97.33, 98.23, 97.83, 97.85 until we get to over a million, and then we're at 96.84. So again, as usual, every week, the lower amounts are getting less ask ratio, and the higher amounts are getting lower than the list to ask ratio. And then everything in between is pretty close to 98%. So pretty interesting when you're looking at that and seeing what's going on, and you'd wonder, well, why are those over a million? Why is there so much room there? And the reason is because usually, you know, people are willing to go down 100,000 or so, you know, on average when it comes to that on an over $1 million house. And that's just kind of what happens. And those people are going to spend that money on that because they're going to make it their own when they're buying that over $1 million house is generally what happens. So the basically when we're looking at the list price on those over $1 million houses, that the price was let's see, that's the average. I'm going to look at the median. The median was 1.3225, and the amount that it sold, the price difference was 115,000. Basically. And so that's pretty common, like I said, when you're doing that in that price point, because that's what people are looking for, is that they're looking for properties and they know that they're going to change it. You know, even if they might have had new carpet in there, it probably wasn't the right color for what they wanted, or they want some other kind of flooring, or they want a different color paint, or they want to do something with the kitchen or the baths or something. Even though they're perfect the way that they are, they're perfectly functional and work, but that's just kind of the way that it works in the higher end homes. So when you're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas, last week there were 116 that sold, and that was 146 the week before. So that's down a little bit, but it's just for the week. Basically, the price is at $295, which is down a little bit. It was at $299 last week, which is up significantly from the last couple of years. From when I started reporting these, the condos, townhomes, and villas, the median price was all around $250. So the last couple of weeks, $295, $299 is basically, you know, what it was. And that inventory is increasing as well, 34. And so now there's 35. 77. So again, that inventory is increasing, kind of like the other, like the single family homes as well. So how everything breaks down, obviously a lot more of those are going to be under 250. Of the 116, 40 of them are under 250. 250 to 300 is 20 that sold, 34 between 300 and 400, 15 between 400 and 500, 6 between 500 and a million, and actually one over a million sold. And the inventory on that, there's only 20 of them on the market, so that brings it at about 5 months worth of inventory there. But the overall condos, townhomes, and villas inventory is at 7.12. So you can see, like I was mentioning, you know, or I talk about all the time, that everything is very local. So when you're looking just at the single family homes versus the townhouses, condos, and villas, if we didn't split that out and look at it, the months on the market would obviously be higher. And so we would think that there's a lot more room for buyers and that kind of thing than there is. And so real estate is extremely local. It's extremely based on the kind of product that you have and everything. And so it makes sense that you're actually comparing apples to apples and, you know, what's going on and all of that kind of good stuff to make sure that everything works the way that you think it should. And so when we're looking at the value of your home, you know, you can't look at even the neighborhood next door many times. You have to be extremely local in evaluating the price of your home. And so we do that, obviously. And, you know, if it's an appraiser looking at it, they might be able to take something that's up to a mile away, but it might not be in your best interest, you know, to do that, to look at it when you're pricing your property, because it might not be right. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, what I was talking about in the last segment is that we were talking about the stats and looking at them and everything, and real estate is so local. And so that's why we do Central Florida Real Estate Radio as a podcast, so you know overall what's going on in the community. But basically, when it comes down to what you're looking for as a buyer or what you're going to do as a seller and what you can expect, it's even more local than that. You know, it's more local than a zip code. It's more local than within, a mile of your property. I'll never forget, years ago, it was in the height of when everything was terrible. And 2010 is when everything was the absolute lowest price. It was mid-2010 when everything started coming back from when they started falling, really in 2006. I got my license in 2005. The market stalled. I saw it in September of 2005. Kind of hung in there a little bit, and then it just started tumbling, and it tumbled from 2007, 8, 9, and then 10 hit the bottom, and then it started going up again. And basically, so the situation with that was everybody was like, oh my gosh, you know, what do I do and what's going on and all of that kind of good stuff. But there were a lot of banks at the early part of that weren't used to that. They didn't know what they were doing 100%. You know, they had all these foreclosures. They didn't have their big foreclosure departments because it wasn't a big part of what was going on with them. And so they had to ramp up and you know, there was a lot of inexperience and that kind of stuff, you know, going on and really with everybody. And I remember I had a deal with a Fannie Mae condo, and it was in Celebration. And basically, there's several condo developments in downtown Celebration. There's Town Center, there's the Carlisle, and there's Water Street. And those are three that are just right downtown, but within a mile of that, some of the terraces are there. And then there's also Mirasol, and Georgetown's not that far away either, and Sienna. So there's a bunch of them that are, you know, fairly close and everything like that. And we had a contract on a Fannie Mae. It was a town center condo, and we had a contract with and it was with Fannie Mae. And it was going to be an FHA loan. And on FHA loans, you may not know this, and you may, but on an FHA loan, when you go through the process of getting an appraisal, that FHA appraisal stays with the property for 6 months. So if you don't go through with that property and somebody else comes in behind you, that FHA appraisal already exists and it's there for 6 months. So, you know, if you own it, and somebody's going FHA, that's basically the price of the property that's been appraised. Now, in conventional, if the appraisal doesn't come in right because there was something that was messed up with it, you can request a new appraisal, and you can sometimes do that and get a new appraisal. And, you know, appraisers are certified and all of that kind of stuff, but it all comes down to, basically their opinion, in my opinion. They can do things to substantiate and all of that kind of good stuff, and they do a good job and everything for the most part and everything. But this Fannie Mae appraisal, this FHA appraisal was done on this condo in Market Street, and the appraisal came in $50,000 underneath the contract price, $50,000 underneath. Now the seller is Fannie Mae, and so they're, you know, obviously huge, and they've got to, you know, go along with the appraisal because they don't know any differently or anything like that. And so they actually reduced the price of that condo of our contract by $50,000. Now, the oddball thing about that appraisal was that they included comps from other condo associations that were significantly less than that particular condo. And so there wasn't really anything that we could do at that point in time to, refute it or whatever. And it wasn't in the buyer's best interest to do so either. Obviously, it would have been in Fannie Mae's best interest to look at it, but they accepted the appraisal. And, because the comps were actually, like 0.1 of a mile away from it and everything. And basically, it came up with that was the price. And so, the buyer was happy as all get out because they ended up getting the property for $50,000 less than what they thought they were going to get it for and everything. But basically, with that in mind, what I learned throughout that experience is that, everybody makes mistakes, and it wasn't a conscious effort, on the appraiser to do that. They thought they were doing their job, but they didn't know the different developments and how one development is cheaper than another or something like that. And you can't know it all, but you have to study it and evaluate it and all of that kind of good stuff. And so basically, when you're looking at a big institutional seller or whatever, because Fannie Mae owned it at that time. I believe it was Fannie Mae. Basically, there wasn't anything that they could do. And so they felt like the value of it was $50,000 less and gave it to us. And like I said, it was an FHA appraisal that definitely sticks with that property for 6 months. So anybody else coming in doing that kind of a loan, they were going to have that same result. And so they decided to go down with it. So, my point on all of this is that you really have to be local and look at it, because those two different condo associations, although they were in the appraisal guidelines of being about the same size, of being, within a mile of each other and all of that kind of stuff, they were not like kind. In essence, it wasn't the same. It wasn't a like kind of sale when it came to those two different developments. And so the one that was significantly less, they had some lawsuits going on and all of that kind of thing at that point in time, and they've all been resolved, and those buildings are in great shape and everything now. But there were some lawsuits going on, and so as a result of that, that definitely depreciated the amount of the value for those units, even though they were right there, just being a part of that development. And I think that we do find that probably in the condo market in Florida right now more than ever since the collapse of that Surfside condo that was such a tragedy that almost 100 people lost their lives in as it collapsed. There are so many more regulations when it comes to condos, and unfortunately there was some deferred maintenance on a lot of them, and the studies that they have to do to make sure that there is no deferred maintenance are extremely expensive, and so they have increased the expenses for condo owners and that kind of thing as well. So when you're considering a condo, you have to look at all of those things and how it, evaluates and how everything has been maintained and all of that kind of good stuff. And so, being extremely local, but like looking at the whole picture and what makes sense for you is what absolutely you need to do. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, knowing what's going on in that area and what's happening and everything for you makes a huge difference. And it can make a big difference in your pocketbook, and you could make the wrong decision if you don't know what's going on. And if you do know what's going on, then that just puts another feather in your cap to take you to that next level where everybody else might not be. So basically, when it comes down to it, you've got to know who you're working with. You've got to work with the right people. And in doing that, you're going to make sure that you're protecting yourself in finding the right deal. And that's really where I think a lot of people are misled right now, that they think if they just go to the listing agent of a property that they're going to save money and everything's going to be good. But who's really looking out for your interest? And I'll cover a bit of that in the next segment because I'm out of time here. But if you, in order to get in touch with us, you want to call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio, and I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was talking in the last segment of really, maybe as a buyer or something, you're thinking that, hey, I can just go ahead and work with the seller's agent and that's just going to be, great and everything's going to work out and all of that kind of stuff. And many times it does. And you might think that it doesn't matter, who you're working with or what's going on and everything when it comes down to that. And it really does make a huge difference. For example, when you're, as a buyer, if you're going in there and you've got your own representation, which only makes sense in my mind that you would do that. And every time I purchased a house before I was a realtor, I definitely had my own representation. I didn't go to that listing agent because I knew they were representing the seller. So basically, when you think about it, if you're going to that listing agent, what you're doing is that if you were going to find an attorney, you would find the same attorney that was representing the other side. And that really doesn't happen. That doesn't make sense. So I don't know why in real estate people think that it makes sense that you would do that, but people do it all the time. And when I'm talking to people, that's what they tell me is that they're going to do. And I'm trying to tell them that I think that you would be better off at least looking at the reasons of why you would want to have your own representation in finding those things out. And basically it comes back to, like I said, the different situations that we've run into, that it would make sense that before you sign your name on that dotted line, that kind of, what's going on and, how you can get out of it and if you really needed to, and the checks and balances to make sure that all the I's are dotted and that the T's are crossed and that you're getting exactly what you want. A very sad statistics, and I don't remember 100% what it was, but it was somewhere around 70 to 80% of the people that bought houses during the pandemic regretted that they didn't buy the house that was right for them. I think that's extremely sad. Buying a house is a really big financial consideration for most people. And so doing that and finding that you spent way too much money or that it wasn't in the right neighborhood of what you wanted, or there were some things that you wish were different about that house that are going to cost you a lot of money to solve and or sell and buy something else, and just the hassle of it all and all those kinds of things are reasons that it may not be, the good fit or whatever for you. And, if you purchase that house. So if you have someone that's representing you and that can actually understand what you're looking for, that makes all the difference in the world to make sure that they've got your best interest at heart. And, I was talking to a couple last week and basically, I was explaining that to them that when you're, it's like that what I really want to do with you as a buyer is that, because they just wanted to go see this one house. And I'm like, well, I really like to get together with people in advance. And time just didn't allow us to do that. But the house that we saw, of course, did not work out exactly for what they were looking for. And so what I told them is I said, really, the best thing for us to do to save you time, energy, and effort and to really hone in on what you're looking for is that if we would sit down for a few minutes and we would go over exactly what you're looking for, and I would, ask a lot of questions. We would find out a lot of reasons, and it's a lot of things that are behind the scenes. It's not as much as like, how many bedrooms and bathrooms and that kind of thing that you're looking for, but really the psychology behind it of, what's most important to you in getting this property. And is it a location? Is it that it is, that it's a one story, that it's got a downstairs primary bathroom and bedroom, that it's got a downstairs bathroom at all, full bath in case, you're in-laws or your parents come to stay with you for a period of time and that they don't have to do the stairs and that kind of thing. So looking at that and what are the must-haves that when it comes to a house. And basically when we sit down and we go through these things with buyers and sellers is that we find that, that when we're dealing a lot of times with couples that one person wants one thing that's like a no non-negotiable thing, and the other one wants something else. And they didn't even know that about each other because we're bringing out these questions that really, make them think. And then they realize that together that this is what they want, and we can come up with that list and we can find it. And then me, as the professional, what I can do is that I go through and I actually find that house. And many times we're finding an off-market property. So if I'm looking for off-market properties, what's going to happen is that I need to hone in on what you're really looking for, because I go after every house that matches the criteria of what we're looking for in order to find that off-market property. And if it's, I'll take anything in the whole Orlando area, north, south, east, and west, and all of that kind of good stuff. It's really hard to get in touch with all million plus homeowners, which I believe there are in the Orlando area, because that's just too broad. So narrowing it down in regards to what you're looking for, we can really hone in on those specific things and find that off-market property that's going to be perfect for what you're looking for. And that's what I really, really, really like to do. I love to find the off-market properties. And when we do that, it's just so rewarding and everything to do. I mean, I had some people recently that they had told me that they want a townhouse, but they only want it on this one block. That was the only townhouses that they wanted. They'd been in them before, and they wanted to get one that hadn't been renovated because they wanted to come in and renovate the whole thing. Like I talked about earlier, when people are buying those more expensive properties, they want to come in and renovate the whole thing. So they would prefer to get one that wasn't renovated. So there are only 19 of those that exist. And so I went ahead and contacted all the owners, and believe it or not, out of those 19, I found 2 of them that would consider talking to us. So how about that? 2 of the 19. And so when you think about that and you go, wow, I was kind of surprised. I said, well, I'm going to give it a shot. There's only 19, so there's not really good odds that somebody's willing to sell, but 2 of the 19 were. And I heard a story one time, a long time ago, that somebody said that, if somebody came to you and they said, hey, I want that house on the corner or something exactly just like it. And you said to them, well, that's not for sale. They're not selling right now. And so you went ahead and you settled for something else. And then right after you moved in, 2 weeks later, a week later, whatever, that house on the corner that you wanted went for sale. Did I do my job in actually finding out if those people were considering it? Obviously, before they put it on the market, they were at least thinking about it. And if I didn't contact them to find out if they were considering making a move in the next little while, that, I know that those buyers that wanted that house would have waited a few weeks to see if those people actually considered it. But if they never got asked, you didn't know. And so that's why it's so important for me to make sure that we sit down and we understand absolutely what you're looking for. And when we know that, then we can take it to the next level. We can find you exactly what you're looking for, and you're not unsatisfied. We do have that buyback guarantee and satisfaction guarantee that if you're not happy with your home purchase, we'll buy it back or sell it for free. And that's within the first 2 years. And I've never had to exercise that because people are happy with what they found because we listened to them and we found it. So it's a way that we can measure whether we did a good job or not. And so, obviously there could be a time when that happens. I hope there isn't. But basically there absolutely could be. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen if at all possible. But I'll be back to talk more about this in the next segment. If you want to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson. I'm the host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio, and I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you could call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, what I was talking about the last segment was there were a lot of people that purchased a home that if they would have thought about it longer, or if they'd have thought they had more choices, or if they'd have known really what they were looking for or at or whatever, that they would have made a different decision. And so, what my main job is when it comes to buyers, I think, is to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. First of all, is that you get the house that you want, that you get the house that 5 years from now, you're looking up going, gosh, I'm so glad that I did. And maybe 10 years, you're going, I'm glad that I did. You might not still be in that same house. You might have moved up to something else, or maybe you would be, but you would have known that you made the right decision when you did that. And that's what is very important to me, is that we make sure that all of our clients are making the decision that's best for them at the time. And that doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily live there forever. We have a lot of people that, when you're first getting started, you're not buying that dream home or that home where you're going to end up. You're going to buy that home that you can afford at that point in time, that's the best property for you, and that you're tired of maybe apartment living or paying rent somewhere that you'd wish that you didn't have to, and everything. So basically, when it comes down to it, you want to make sure that you're absolutely, end up where you want to end up and not somewhere else. And that's what we're committed to, is to making sure that everybody does that. And so that's what I was saying, that we want to meet with people, asking questions, making sure that everything is done on the up and up and the way that it should be, to begin with, to make sure that I can understand what you're looking for, maybe even help you understand what you're looking for, to find you the best of all possible worlds. And so that's what it comes down to, is that we really want to sit down, make sure that you're finding that thing that is most important to you when it comes to finding that house. And if you're a first-time buyer, there might be compromises that you make when you first buy your first home. But as you go along and you've got equity, that's the whole purpose, is that, and maybe, you've progressed in your employment and that kind of thing, and that you've you can afford more things and you've got more resources and that kind of thing, that you might be moving up to a different neighborhood or a different school district or whatever. And so basically it comes down to that we want to make sure that everybody is where they want to be when they want to be there. And it's really important to people a lot of times that they live, close to other people that they know, because they don't want to be traveling all over to get to them. And with traffic, sometimes you go, it should only take 5 minutes and it's taking 20. What's going on? And you don't want to be where it should take 5 minutes and it takes an hour, or should take 10 minutes and it takes an hour. So basically everybody's different in regards to, what you want to do. I mean, there's a lady that I'm working with right now that when she bought this house, and she didn't buy it from me, but when she bought it, she thought, the commute isn't going to bother me, that much with traveling an hour and a half to get to work. And then it ended up being 2 hours, and she's like, okay, that's 4 hours out of my day that I'm taking traveling to and from work. That's not really a good plan for me at this point in time. And so by the time she would get home and everything, because she has a really good job and not just 40 hours a week, that she would definitely, not have a lot of time. And when she looked at it and she was spending 20 hours a week traveling to and from that job, that wasn't her best option. And so, we were able to sell her home really quickly, and she's got her place that's much closer to her job, and she tried it, but she didn't like it. And so basically, it comes down to that there's a lot of things to consider when you're looking at, purchasing a home. I remember recently I was working with, a family, and they wanted to make sure that they were within this distance of this location, this distance of that location, and they had this little triangle, and they wanted to be in the middle of all of that so that they were close to the things that were important to them. And, and then they had a lot of other criteria and that kind of thing too. But basically it comes down to that we want to make sure that you are in the best house for you and your family at whatever point in time that you decide to do that. And that's what it's all about. So switching gears a little bit here, now we're going to our house of the week. And this is a brand new house on the market. Just came on the market a couple of days ago. And this house is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath property, 1 story. It's in the rolling hills of Claremont. So it's on the hillside of it. But basically, it is definitely on the back of it, has no rear neighbors because you've got this beautiful pond view. So it's got an extended lanai, and they have beautiful sunset views every night where you can see the wildlife and the birds and all that kind of good stuff that are out there. This particular home has only had one owner, and they have kept it in impeccable shape. Everything is absolutely in perfect condition, on this home, and everything very well maintained. And so it's in a gated community. There's not a lot of homes in this community, probably only less than 100, and probably maybe even only 50. But the HOA is $400 a quarter, so not or $300 a quarter, $1,200 for the year. So that's not a whole lot as well for a gated community, and just a really nice wooded, community with mature trees, not overly grown trees or anything like that. But this is a great 1-story home. This lady is moving closer to her daughter. And so that's basically, what she's doing. This is a 2,500 square foot house. So you've got plenty of room in it. It's a very open concept. All of the bells and whistles that you'd be looking for in regards to tray ceilings and all of that kind of good stuff. So if you're interested in seeing that house, just let us know, and we'll be happy to make sure that you've got all the details on it and we can get you in it. And if there's anything else that we can absolutely help you with, we're here to help. And that's basically what the bottom line is and what our claim to fame is and what we try to do. And our name, Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, our name is our promise, is that we're always striving to do better and to do the best for everybody that we're working with. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.